It's great to be with you. I feel it's such a privilege to be speaking to you, and even in these strange times. As Nikki said, I have a wealth of experience stretching back into a long distant past, but the thing that I want to point out to you that I want you to know is I'm also a parent of a child, not with dyslexia, but with special needs. And I understand it from both perspectives, so I have great empathy with you. My one aim tonight is to give you plenty of ideas and resource links to things that might help you during this very unusual and stressful period for everyone. So without further ado, let's look at our aims this evening. I will hope to show you what's available, what's around. It won't be everything. Everything is huge and among us, but at least you will have a chance to have a look at some of the things that we have that's available and that you can use. Hopefully there's some practical ideas to take away, and obviously we'll be talking a little bit about what school have been expecting of you, your relationship maybe with school, and the parent-teacher dynamic, which is different. Also, we look at the creative ideas that will build confidence in using online methods. And lastly, we'll look at any coping strategies for you or your child that may be of significance to you. So let's keep going. So what are the things worth considering? Well, even before assistive technology, I know, because I've just heard it, that some of you battle to get acknowledgement of your child's needs. And I'm speaking to the parents here. If you're a professional on the call, I don't want to hit you with that one. It's purely a way of just pointing out to you a supportive school is worth its weight in gold, because any kind of assistive technology that's incorporated in it has to be taken on board by the school and by the child. Both are entirely important. And especially as you're teaching him at home now, it's really important that that support enables you to do it. Now, the cost of some of this equipment is enormous, and some of it is free. So there is a huge spectrum of things. And what I will do is try to answer those questions from both ends of the spectrum. And the main message I want to get across to you tonight is this: relax. This is extremely important. I know it's extremely difficult at the moment, but if you relax, your child relaxes. And if that happens, then you're in a much better situation to help your child. Children are extremely perceptive to the emotions of what's going on. For instance, if I said to your child, do your work, in that tone of voice, they might not get so reflective about it or happy to do that. Tone of voice carries a lot of messages to the child. So it's more like, well, can we look at it this way, or shall we do this? Now, too relaxed and it becomes very overridden by your child, who would run rings around you. So I'm aware of both ends of that. And so my message too is engagement. This is a critical factor even before introducing technology. And so what I want to purport to you is, when you're teaching your child, and many of you have been put in this position not by choice but by proxy, it's not your skill set, and all of a sudden some of you have been put into this scenario, then what you need to do is to try and make it different to school. When I was working in the authority, I used to make that point very much, that it was different to school. And we used to draw a line under what we did in school would be different to what we do at home, but they were complementary and they would join each thing up. So what I'm suggesting is make your child feel they're the most important person in this learning. And by doing that, you can create topic-based subjects that fascinate or interest your child. Now, not all subjects are going to be the one that they like to do, so mix up your day. I'm sure you have learnt that routines play an important part now at this point. At the first few weeks of COVID lockdown, it was probably a bit of a holiday, but when it gets going on to the 13th week, as it is, then it becomes more of a slog. And I introduce simple little rules that are memorable, like work, then play, so that we don't have play, then work. And I mentioned to you that your child child is probably a PhD in diversion tactics. I remember meeting a secondary age pupil who said, I don't have any problems with spelling. And then I looked at his work and literally every word was misspelt. And he copes by it by hiding it. And many children try and hide their disability because they don't want to be different. They don't want to be picked out. And also we have this concept too in education that we should give them more of what they find difficult in the hope that that would make it better. Well, actually, I don't think it does. What I think works is giving them the strengths that they have and make the assistive technology help them. So that's really the raison d'etre for doing this. And cast your mind back to when you were a child and what you did when you were a child and how you learnt. And I would think a fair majority of you would remember maybe different kinds of places and events where you were playing. I remember a rope. We had a tire on and we used to swing dangerously across waters. Of course, that's not health and safety at the moment. But I also used to use the boxes from my mother's shop to make tunnels. And it didn't take a lot of money and it didn't take a lot of equipment, just a lot of cardboard in my case. And we built wonderful imaginary places to go from. There is a concept that children are not imaginative enough this day because they have all this technology and media entertainment. Sit back and enjoy. No, children are just as creative as they've always been, and I'm sure you would bear that out with me. So playing, creating, and most of all inspiring teachers. I used to have this very eccentric teacher, and we'll call him Mr. Gray, and Mr. Gray used to play Bach in the art room. The art room was my refuge point, and he would play Bach all day long. And most of the other children were throwing aeroplanes and throwing things all over the place. And yet I continued to draw because that was my skill and I wanted to do that. But you know what? He took an interest in us and he provided a nurture environment and we could grow as people, as understanding. He opened up my heart, my eyes to different kinds of art, the Renaissance, the Baroque, all those kind of things. And also there was an English teacher who taught me about poems, and I got a great love because of his enthusiasm. Enthusiastic teachers are infectious. Let's be infectious parents to enable your child to catch that learning is fun and it's great, and it's not about loads of facts. It's about what you do with the facts and make them useful. So end of preach about that if you like, and let's talk about the assistive tech side of things, because that's why you're here. To playback content is one of the major benefits of assistive technology. The ability to replay what you've just seen is vitally important for a dyslexic learner, because sometimes the pace by the teacher is too fast and their cognitive processing may be a bit slower and they find it difficult to catch up. I do not see technology as replacing handwriting, but bypassing it to enable a child to show what they can do, not what they can't do, and to correct spelling where spelling isn't the major focus of the task, and to make the work legible, not illegible, for themselves and for others, because actually it matters what other people think, other teachers think. They judge you by your writing, and sadly that is true. And so a child who writes scrawlily, the teacher may think, well, this child is not very intelligent or very articulate. Nothing could be further from the truth. I meet a lot of children who say, I'm stupid. And I tell them they're not stupid. They just need to get over the barrier and use a tool that helps them. So also, such tools as assistive technology, which we're going to look at now, develop fluency of writing. It's about flow. It's about getting the job done. It's about getting their thoughts down on paper. You may have a child that has brilliant ideas, but cannot get it down on paper. That's often something that I come across. And also you may have a child that spends hours trying to form a letter, or you usually see it with a hard concentration about the physical process of writing. And then there are other children that refuse to write handwriting point blank because they have experienced that failure, that sense of not being like the rest. And this is why a lot of work has gone into improving self-esteem in our world here. So let's look at some of the apps that we need to talk about. This isn't a full comprehensive list, I mentioned that, but it does show some of the skills that is being shown here that will help you to look at the different ranges of uses of IT. So we have clicker sentences. We're going to look at a little video about that. It's actually Clicker Writer, and Clicker is a grid selection software. We then have word prediction and text production tool called ClaraRead, which enables writing to go that one step further. There is Glean, which is designed to actually be used by secondary age pupils to gather the listening skills of finding that. And if your child struggles with understanding the part that matches the whole, then Poplet Lite is a good tool, a mind mapping tool that's easy to use for children of all ages. Padlet is more of a teacher tool, as is Nearpod, which is quizzes. But the one tool I would put to you is QR codes. It's those little blocky square things, and they are absolutely brilliant for creating treasure trails of information. Instead of doing the boring, you do this, I'll tell you to do this, now you've done it, and that's good. Give them a picture, use their phone or mobile to take a picture, and then the information will come back to them. That website, QR Stuff, will show you how to make it. And that's such an important thing. Now, Nearpod is a quiz tool. So there's loads of pre-built quizzes on there for secondary age. And then the last one is a bit of fun called Puppet Pals, which some of you may know. It's a speaking app that designs animated stories involving you. And so let's look at some of these. So Clicker Writer, I'm just going to play the sound here. Nikki, can you check and nod that it's working as far as you know?
Welcome to Clicker. In this tutorial, I'll walk you through the basics of Clicker's writing support, speech support, the predictor, and Clicker grids. First, let's take a quick look at the toolbars. The lower toolbar is the one your learners will use most. All these tools relate to the document you're writing. The upper toolbar contains higher level tools for dealing with your files, clicker sets, and settings. Finally, the tools down here come in handy when you're using Clicker grids. Let's get started by typing a sentence. When you add a full stop, Clicker reads out the sentence.
I love writing with Clicker.
This encourages children to review their writing as they go and to make their own corrections. To hear a section, highlight it and click the speech tool.
The speech helps me.
Now let's take a look at the predictor. Turn the predictor on, then choose the words you want as you type. If you need help reading the word, turn on Sound Shift and tap the word. Alternatively, use right-click.
Suggestions.
OK, we'll clear our document, and now let's consider those learners who need a higher level of support. We're going to open a clicker set, so go to Explorer, go to Sample Clicker Sets, and choose Sentence Set. A sentence set is a set of grids for writing simple sentences. A clicker grid sits in the lower section of the screen. When you click words in the grid, they get sent into the document, just as if you typed them on the keyboard.
Tommy is reading a book.
Clicking the forward arrow or swiping forward takes you to the next grid, so you can create another sentence.
Sally is writing a story.
A sentence set typically contains lots of grids, so you can create a meaningful piece of writing, one sentence at a time. OK, now let's open a different kind of clicker set. We'll go to our samples again in Explorer and select the Connect set. Connect sets provide more open-ended activities. Connect up the words or phrases to create your sentence.
The monster is huge and fierce.
Then move on to the next grid to write the next section of your story. Finally, let's clear our document and take a look at word banks. Go to the sample grids and select this file. Word banks provide alphabetical or topic-based word lists to use alongside the keyboard to support writing in any subject area. Remember, you can use sound shift or right-click to hear a word read aloud.
Fertile.
And just click to add it to your document. Your subscription gives you free access to hundreds of ready-made clicker sets for a whole range of subjects. Go to Explorer, then click Learning Grids and search for what you need. To create your own clicker set, go to the clicker set menu, select New and choose the type of set you want. Thanks for watching. Check out our other tutorial videos for more clicker features.
So what that does, it stops the blank page syndrome. You know, when a child is faced with a blank page, now write me a sentence, and the child is thinking what to say. Well, here it prompts you. We call it scaffolding, and it's the beginning of writing fluently. And so in the context of a school, this is a brilliant Senko tool. So if we've got any teachers or Senkos on the call or professionals, it enables children to have a range of tools. If you look at the program in detail, there are about 4 different programs there that support and grow with the child. So it's a tool that will grow with them through the primary school, mainly the primary school. And at the end of the day, it also has good access means. So if your child is physically disabled as well as having dyslexia, it does have tools that allow switches and eye gaze systems. So if you don't know what those are, don't worry, but those who need to know would know. So that's Clicker. What I want to do now is just show you something for an older child. And for that, I'm going to come out of this presentation, and I need to do that right down here. So here we go. There we are. So we're in Office 365 here, and this applies to Office 2016 and 2019, but not previous versions such as 2010 or 2030. So what you've got built in, and if you're heard Aaron Smith speak about this, this is what they call the desktop immersive specialist tools that are around here that are built into the product. The first thing I'm going to do is show you the dictation tool, which again is built in. There's no special training or equipment, and hopefully everything works. As you can see, I am writing with my voice, and it is picking up my words very clearly. But if I cough or go or have something like that, it doesn't do too bad, but it's not as good, and I'm really speaking a very, very long sentence, period. So it's not bad, is it? It's actually done quite well with some of the sounds I made, which children make. And of course, children, when they get introduced to speech recognition, want to try out the naughty words first. But soon that leaves, and then you're left with the guts of trying to do something. Well, that's input. That's inbuilt speech recognition, and it needs Wi-Fi for that to work, because this is running online. What I'm going to do now is play that back through the immersive reader, which is on the View menu. And if I click Immersive Reader, the screen changes. Now, one of the biggest things that we can introduce into all schools at no cost whatsoever is text-to-speech. And text-to-speech could actually revolutionize a lot of children's lives, because it's for all. It's not just for the dyslexic or the child who struggles, it's for everybody, and it's there, just sitting there. And so what we have here is a tool that can actually speak to us. Not as posh as the last one in Clicker, I have to say, but it's fine.
I haven't got the sound on that, Myles.
Did you hear that?
No, no sound on that.
Okay, my apologies for that. I wonder why that is. Anyway, it does speak out. I've certainly got it on my machine here. So what else can it do? We can change the background so that you can have a yellow background if you've got some visual impairment, or a light cyan background that I was using, or a green one. We can also increase the text size up here, and we can make it smaller if we wish. And what is also quite nice is that we can actually make it line focus and have it speak to us. So I'm just going to put it on a single line, and I can have that speak to us. So what you would find, not in this presentation, but the words that are highlighted are being spoken, and that's a really valuable tool. This is all part of the package. There is no additional cost required. Very important message for schools, that one. And then sometimes there is a word that you can actually translate into a different language if you wanted to do so, or you can have pictures to try and explain this. Interesting. Good equates to sainthood, doesn't it there? And so I didn't know that. And also there's other diagrammatic ways to support writing. It's a supportive immersive reader. So that's the immersive reader. I'm now going to stop this presentation and go back to my original presentation and pick off where I was. Sorry, I'm going to close that again and just start again. Sorry about that. Here we go. Right, and move on. I'm going to look at another tool now.
Welcome to Clicker.
No, I don't want to welcome to Clicker. It's called Glean. Glean is brand new. It hasn't been on the market very long, and it's about actually being able to have a listening, active listening. Far too many children don't listen well. Their attention is distracted, and what this does is help to develop intelligent listening, and it does it by assigning codes and then replaying the work back again. Again, it's that key assistive technology skill of being able to replay what you've just seen. So, Glean.
We know that it's really hard to take good notes and stay focused in the moment. So let's look at how Glean helps you take notes with minimal effort. To get started, click the New Event button. An event is where you'll record audio and add notes. Just give your event a title, then click the Record button. Glean visualizes audio on screen, so you'll see blocks of speech and gaps when there are pauses. This makes your recording really easy to navigate and lets you link notes or labels to specific moments you may want to revisit later. Let's see how that works. To add a text note, just start typing, then click Send or press Enter to post the note to your feed. You can also post to your feed using Glean's quick labels. So if you hear something particularly important, just click Important. Add text if you want to, or just send it straight to your feed as a reminder for later. Adding a heading breaks up your recording into sections, whether you add text in the moment or leave this for later on. And switching to lightning mode lets you add labels with a single click or keyboard shortcut. When you're done recording, just click Stop. You can exit your event safe in the knowledge that Glean continually saves as you work, whether you're online or offline. The cloud icon will show when your changes have also been synced to the cloud, so you can access your events from any device. When you come back to your event, you'll feel pretty good that you have a complete record of what was said and your personal feed showing exactly what you need to focus on. Each entry is associated to specific blocks of audio and has a play button. so you can listen back and note down the information you need. Just fill in the blanks or edit existing entries until you have a super useful set of notes. We'd love to hear how you get on with Glean. Click on the heart icon to let us know how you feel. Or if you have any questions or comments, go to Get in Touch and share your thoughts.
So that's Glean. And one of the things that I think I need to point out to you, both Clicker Writer, which is an expensive product, about £350, and Glean, I can't get a price for at the moment. But the good news is both of them are being offered free to parents during COVID-19. So you might want to have a look. I'll show you the websites. There are links there for you to take that on board. I'll explain at the end of the chat talk about that. So let's get on to the final little product that I've got, which is called Puppet Pals 2. And I mentioned to you that this is about creating animated stories. It's brilliant for sharing with one another, to create your story and to make the animations come to life. And we'll suggest some ideas for that as well. So this is a very short video, very fast paced.
Hola Miguel, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien, ¿y tú, Rosa?
I win.
Tough little lady.
Phew, that was a quick run through, wasn't it? But you can see how much fun you could have with that in creating stories. I love the fact that you can take a picture of yourself and put yourself in the story. I know lots of kids love that, and being able to actually use it in the context of history, which Puppet Pals can do too. We'll talk more about that later. So moving on, and I just want to show this device, the scanning pen. Scanning pens have been around for a long time, but just recently they've come of age and they are being used extensively in exams. What does a scanning pen do? Well, it actually, you put the pen across a piece of paper so it reads any printed text, not handwriting, printed text. Hopefully one day we'll get handwriting done, but at the moment it does text. You stretch it across the paper and it will then read it back to you in your ear through an earpiece, and they're brilliant tools for that. So I really think it's a valuable tool for schools to take on board, and cuts the need to have somebody like an amanuensis to be with you in exams. Students at university are using them for research because they've just introduced a Bluetooth pen called Connect C, which enables you to send the information from the printed page into your own research notes and to be able to edit them and use them in another way. Also, it's great for translating when you're on holiday because it converts into 48 languages. So really powerful tools these things are. The next one is brand new. I don't think anybody in the UK will really know about this one, and it's actually designed for ADHD children. But going back to the fact that we don't listen too well, and there's plenty of distraction noises in classrooms, this little device called the Nuance Hearing actually enables sound to be brought in from a location. You can just about make out a little chevron by the central bit, a little radius thing. That is the direction the sound is being drawn from, and it blots out all the other sounds. So literally it just enables the child to concentrate on the teacher or whoever they're talking to. That's a really interesting one. And then we get on to the more important one that you're more familiar with, mobiles. Which one? Which one do you go for? Do you go for the iPad, expensive, on the left, or do you choose the Android on the right? I have to say, more apps have developed for the iPad in education terms than they have from the Android. And certainly I have a list of apps that you can have a look at in both departments, both devices. So my message is this: all the mobiles, whether they're expensive iPads or Android devices, have these features built in. And do we make use of them? You can have your text read out to you. You can actually put your text in with your voice. You can use drawing to draw your notes or pictures, and you have text that you can type in there with word prediction if required. And the most powerful one, the camera, where you can take images and put them into your work. Now, a lot of students do silly things with those things, but to be honest with you, once the silliness goes, and with the right kind of approach in a class setting, then that is a powerful tool. At home, you can create your own movies, you can script them, you can write them, you can do all sorts with them. And that is across all of those previous tools. Are we using them? That's my question. So let's get to some ideas now. And these I've tested out and used, because during this period, I have been teaching my nephews and nieces' children and remotely, and they're between the ages of 4 and 9. And so that's a huge age range. And so we've been doing some of these things. For instance, the time capsule. This is a brilliant one from Twinkle. And what it's asking you to do is to keep a diary of what you have done with objects, with photographs, with bits of things that you've done. I put some wood in because I've made a wooden stand for my iPad, and it goes into a box that you put in the attic and open up in 5 years' time, just to remind yourself and the children what this was all about, because our memories are very small. Great activity for kids to do. Team up. Why not meet with another set of dyslexic people if you wish, or other people across the internet in a teaching session? You may be already doing that. And have fun with it and use the virtual background. In Zoom, there is a facility to green screen the thing behind you. So you could be on the beach, in space, all kinds of places, and you can team up for that. Do texting like Chinese whispers across different devices in your house and see what the original message was. Historical characters. Put a real or imaginary character into an event that we are working through as a history project, and history projects like Horrible Histories is great. All the children love horrible histories, so make use of their content on iPlayer, which is free. Design and make your own advert, use iMovies to do that, and make an iMovie trailer of life in lockdown, which will sound exactly like a movie trailer, and that's on the iPad. Interview your mum and dad. Ask them how they're feeling about lockdown, and then reverse the cameras. Mum and dad film the kids and ask what they're doing, because you know what? I think a lot of children are very worried and very emotionally worried about going back to school after such a long gap. Maybe they're not showing it. But certainly my daughter has hated this period because all her routines stopped at a stroke, and she relies on her routines to mark her life, and she's 35. So moving on, quiz me. Make up a quiz about some of the following things: bugs and minibuzz, using Nearpod, flowers and trees, about your brothers and sisters, your parents, bike rides you've been on, walks you've been on in your exercise period. Make a quiz me. And finally, docu-me. A coronavirus day, life in the Sloane Lane, done in the style of meerkats and David Attenborough. Here we are in the room with Nikki and Claudia and Greta Gumberg and Malaya. Sorry, I can't say a word and I should. Favourite singer and teacher and comedian. I'm engaging projects here that are a little bit out of the box, but I can guarantee that you are covering an awful lot of skills with those topics. So how are we doing? We're looking at assistive technology and what's available. Giving you a brief overview of that. We've looked at helpful resources and practical tools to assist in home learning. Managing expectations of the school yourself. That's one we haven't covered particularly. So I'm just going to mention that. Some schools are very good and do online lessons. Other schools is virtually, they give you a can of beans and a can opener and expect you to do it with a set of websites. And what suddenly schools were thrust into is that they abandoned all their VLEs, their virtual learning platforms, and that has actually had to be reintroduced. And so you've got schools that have bits of this on one device and bits of this on another. It's not coordinated, it's not brought together. That's frustrating. So if schools are expecting you to teach your children, have they given you the right resources? Don't hit them with it, because literally they're in the same boat as you, having to try and play catch up. And what I haven't mentioned is the parent's role is very different to the teacher role. I know that from my own child's experience. A teacher is a little bit one step removed, and so they're able to do more learning that way. Your role is much more emotionally involved with an awful lot of emotional things going on. So work to your strengths, do things that are slightly different, but you can cover the same topics. And then there are online materials, and we're going to look at that now. So let's have a look at some of the online materials and coping strategies for both you and your children. I have to say, every single one of you, if you're a parent, you're doing a fantastic job. You really are, because these are hard and difficult times. So to even survive this long and want to come on a webinar about further teaching methods, it's either out of desperation or love for the subject, then you're doing well. Pat yourself on the back. So I mentioned to you that I've been teaching my own nephews and nieces' children, and so what I want to do here is just play a little bit of a clip about it. And the subject was myths and legends, and you're going to hear Leo speak a little bit about his myth and legend, because what I did was that we did this in short chunks. I split everything up, and I start off with a memory game like Kim's game, and then I introduce the main teaching bit, which was about myths and legends. I used the Girt Worm of Shergold Forest, which is a bit of a West Country thing, and it's done animated, and the links for that are available. I'll show you where at the end of the lecture or seminar or webinar, and then they get to tell their own stories. So here's Leo. He's not, I would say, a special needs child. I think you'll find he's probably at the other end of the spectrum. But here we go. He found a coral stone, and this is what he's done with it.
Hey.
Off you go, Leo.
My story is where a lion goes around in a certain way and meets rocks, and then on the way he meets a unfriendly sort of giant hiding under one rock, which jumps out and says boo.
Boo! Like that.
Here it is.
Ah.
As
You
you
drew a
can see
map,
that.
didn't you? Of walking around. Yeah.
There is a giant under this rock.
Under the coral rock.
Yeah, but then he has quite a long way to travel to get to that rock.
Ah.
So, yeah, so then, okay.
Off you go, Leo. So he would keep on going for a lot longer. Tell me about it. He was talking over the other two people that were there as well. And this picture you've got here in front of you, Daisy. Daisy is the soft toy of the 4-year-old, and she drew me this beautiful character that I would love to animate, wouldn't you? And beautiful orange, almost looks like an alien, really. But she said, I can't think of a story. And then I related that the family love books, and I said, talk to mum about it. And that's something offline that they could do together. And then we ended with a song that encourages anticipation. 10 fat sausages, 5 ducks went swimming one day. I know an old lady who swallowed a fly. The gorier the better, actually, that kind of thing. Anyway, just to increase that sense of moving forward with anticipation, guessing what's coming, because that works across video. I didn't show the video because I felt it was not fair to the children to show them when they have been asked, and I decided that was the best thing to do. Now, some useful websites. The government actually made a wonderful website called which actually has all of the information regarding coronavirus, and I've just got this. The National Academy, which is the Oak National Academy, actually has some really good videos, and it's well structured and you can replay it back again. And then on Barter we have a list of suppliers supplying free resources. So all of these are geared towards providing assistive technology to you. And then lastly, the BDA have some resources on phonics and reading books that I noticed. And if I had a little bit more time, I would show you them all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and come out of this again. And hopefully you'll stay with me and haven't left me. And I'll share my screen and we'll go to the websites here. So here's National Oak Academy. Are you seeing that, Nikki? Can you nod again? Yeah.
Yep, see it.
And that's where you can go and find lots of materials. It's got loads and loads of materials, and it starts with an opener, has a content, and then moves on. Next to that, we've got the coronavirus section, and these are some of the things that companies are giving to people to use in a range of contexts. Not everything is useful. This was aimed at students, but there may be something in there that you might find extremely useful. And I will just mention that, yeah, I'm just trying to move this out of the way. I can't. I know what I can do. Yeah, okay, that's a bit better. So I'll just bring that down a little bit. What we've got here is some of those free resources that I was telling you about. And if I just show you here, there's a link on the presentation, and these have got all the apps, many of them free as well as paid, according to puzzles, reaction times, organization, arts and painting, music, social stories, and some of those teaching ideas that I had. And you've got them all here if you want to make use of them for free. And that's on the slide that's coming next. So that's me done. And there is the link for the supporting resources. Here is my email and my telephone number. And please, if all 1,000 of you or 2,000 of you actually try to contact me all in the next 24 hours, please be patient. I've only got one set of ears and one mouth. I will get back to you. It might just take me a little bit longer to do that with so many people on the call. I hope that was useful. I hope I did what was on the tin, and I'll hand back over now with 34 seconds to spare on my 45 minutes to Nikki.
Thank you so much, Myles. That was great. Great. Loads of information. Very brave man giving out your phone number, I have to say. I hope you don't get inundated with questions, because I have to admit we've had lots coming in on the chat. Some more about specifics on technical apps that you've shown, and some are just generic ones. So we do have a bit of time. We've got about 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and get through some. Okay, so we have had a question that says, can you recommend any tools which help with organisation of life in general for teenagers, for example? I know you said that in one of your links there was something to do with organisation apps, but I don't know if you could talk about that a little bit more for us.
Yeah, sure. Some are timetable apps which might help in terms of organising the 2-week timetable that happens at secondary school. One I like is called Remember the Milk. Which is a listing one, which actually prompts you with messages, and it gives you a visual or auditory prompt. So Remember the Milk is an app that you can do. It's useful to have apps that can actually enable you to set reminders, have them come towards your phone, and also maybe some video footage as well. I had one person who was doing caring of horses. He was a teenager and he kept forgetting the time he was meant to be feeding them. Of course, animals need to have regular times. We used to have a app there called Forgetful. Now, unfortunately, that no longer exists. And there doesn't seem to be an equivalent apart from Remember the Milk, but it doesn't incorporate video. And I really would like to know if anybody has come across a reminding app that allows you to put video and audio messages on. It's kind of like having your mum there. Remember to feed the animals, that kind of thing. OK. That's
brilliant. Thank you. A great question coming in. How do we get schools to give us access to these programmes? And also, how do we ask for the equipment? And I know some of the applications you said are free, but how do we actually get them to implement them in schools?
Well, it's really cooperation. I do agree. If you've got a supportive school who are willing to help you, and do not go in demanding, that gets nowhere. Trust me, all it does is just create atmosphere. What you need to do is work with them. Well, what can we do? I know this is sometimes going to be a little bit difficult. Having someone like myself who could broker it, a special needs support service, they still exist in some parts of the country. It may be worth talking to them and saying, look, can you help us engage with school? Now, regarding getting the materials, that is a much more tricky one because schools have been given the equipment. Now, my loan bank went into schools and they were given the responsibility, so it's definitely in the courts. But getting them to give you equipment, well, that's really difficult. There are plenty of charities out there, and I mentioned two that might be quite helpful. If you're a vulnerable person, you have very limited budget, you can apply to Wavelength and devices.now. Now, I haven't got that on the call, but I can supply that to Nikki if that's helpful. And they supply devices to vulnerable people, so it may not fall into the school's remit, as education is like that. If you have local charities, we have one where I live here in Wiltshire called the Wiltshire Community Fund, and we help children who are in difficult circumstances, young carers, that kind of thing. We supply kit to them when they go to university. So it's a case of finding what's in the local area and engage schools in a positive way, a cooperative way. We're not here to bash you. We want to work with you. Please, can you find a way for us to work together? And most of the apps I've talked about, I've mentioned, are free. You can approach Clicker regarding a COVID-19 license. There is those lists of things. So it's a question of knowledge, particularly at secondary school. Did you know this exists kind of message rather than why aren't you using it? OK, so cooperation works better than confrontation, even though you feel like confronting them. I do know.
Great, thanks. Great advice. OK, another question. It says, what would you recommend for helping with putting down ideas and structuring them? For example, story mapping, mind mapping. My son finds getting going really hard, and an easy way of putting a few basic ideas down would really help him to get started, especially if there is an easy way of pulling in pictures and drawings too.
Yeah, the answer to that is Inspiration 9. Inspiration 9 allows you to create diagrams as a mind map and then structures them into a point-by-point essay outline. That's one tool I would recommend that would be really powerful for them. You can have an app for that, but I think the PC laptop version has that more facility for that. And then you can have it save in different formats. That's really useful. If you're into sticky notes, then there is an app called Sticky Notes, and you can organize your sticky notes into little groups and then have that as a picture that you could use. I don't know how useful that is, but I just mentioned it. People love colour. That's one way of doing it. But those are just two tools. Well, one tool is inspiration. That'll definitely answer that problem.
Brilliant, thank you. I have another question from Darren asking particularly about Clicker Writer. It says, can you export the information into Google Docs and Word, etc.?
Yes, Yes, that has been designed with that, but its grown-up brother is better at it, called Docs Plus. That's the secondary version of it. Looks and feels like Word and is much better at that kind of thing. I think there's a little conversion process you have to do, which I think slows the process down. Doesn't make it as fluid, but yeah, you can do that.
Brilliant, thank you. So we have someone that's written in and say, I'm interested in technology to record a teacher's explanations to stuff the students is copying down off the board so they can listen back at a later point to what's being said as they're struggling to copy off the board, which we know is quite a common dyslexic trait. So do you have any technology that could help with that?
Well, we showed you Glean, that's one of them. Another one is Sonicent, which is an app. And then that can record anything. They were these things called smart pens in the past. They're not popular now, but I have come across one called Rocketbook, which you can buy from Amazon, and basically your handwriting can be converted into type and text from that point of view. But I think particularly Sonicent is a free app, and there is an online subscription, about £39 a year, to actually have the conversion tool to convert it in the way that you saw Glean do it. Glean is lean and clean. It does have a complicated interface, and that's what I would do with that. So applying meaning and recording. I hope that answers the question.
That's great, thank you, Myles. Have a question about scanning pens. Jackie is saying, we give scanning pens to our students, but they're too embarrassed to use them in front of their friends. Do you have any suggestions to overcome this?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I had a student who had exactly the same problem. I think if everybody uses it, I think a few lessons where it's demonstrated that everybody uses those pens, or the group that has them, they use them together. And I'll just mention to you, hopefully these 2 books have come in from Scanning Pens. The Helping Hand Detective Agency gives you tasks that you can do to make those pens work with different people. So that you can get and download from Scanning Pen's website, the Helping Hand Detective Agency. And that may be a way of getting them to use the pens together and and not feel so embarrassed about it. Sometimes I say, well, then please use it at home if you feel more comfortable to do your homework that way. I think a lot of people, I mean, really, it's something that fits in your top pocket and is portable and so very discreet. But yeah, it spots them out as having a need, and anything that they use that has a need might actually be very difficult for a teenager to cope with. I do get it. I do understand. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Michaela is asking, how long can each of the recordings in Glean be? Do you know?
Infinite.
Okay.
You can record as much as you like. It's designed for that. That is also free until the 31st of August from glean.co. I think it's glean dot something or other. Yeah, it's in the list on here. Yes.
Let's have a look. I think we've got time for a couple more questions. Jackie's asking, is there a free app that can read from web pages similar to Claro Read?
An app that can read from pages. Natural Reader. That actually is also an extension in Chrome used on a PC and also as an app. Natural Reader would do that, would read web pages back to you.
Brilliant. And there's lots of people asking for costs and things, but I'm presuming the links, if they use the links that we're going to send out afterwards, they'll be able to find individual costs for things. Is that right? Yeah, yes. Brilliant. Okay. Okay, I think we have time for one more quickly. Let me find one. Lauren is asking, is there anything that can assist with revision planning, please?
Yeah, the one that's been around for donkey's years, but is liked by students, is GCSE Pod. And that has a lot of revision usage. Lots of secondary schools use them. I think it's had a remake in the last year, but well worth a look at. GCSE Pod.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Myles. That is about all we have time for because it's 8:30 now. Thank you, Myles. That was a fantastic presentation. So much information. And that just leaves me to say a huge thank you to Myles and to everyone for joining us, and have a great rest of your evening.
That was a pleasure. Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Myles. Take care. Good night.
Bye.